That should help. Oh, hi. Uh, Welcome back for another Nightmare on Elm Street review. We're nearing the end, actually. There's not much left to go. So, next up we have, I guess, the sort of post-regular series Freddy movies, the first of them, where they were kind of looking to either send the franchise off with a bang or reinvent it. Because I gather things had started to wind down as far as how profitable they were. Nightmare on Elm Street, the series was canceled, the comic book was canceled. It seemed that the general public perhaps was not as enamored with Freddy as they used to be. So New Line decided, well, let's kill him off and see what happens. So one last blast for the man with the razor claws. Of course, we would see him 2 more times after that. But hey, what did I say last time? That's the way it works in the horror world. Death is never eternal, especially for your central, immortal killer, whoever it happens to be. Alrighty, so without any further ado, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, today on the Multimedia Chronicles. Welcome back. So, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, yet another one I neglected to go see in the theater. I think it's because of when it came out. Where the heck was I? It was 1991, I was living in Winnipeg. Yeah, I think I just didn't have a lot of money. I didn't get out to the movies very much. So it actually wasn't until I purchased the Laserdisc. Yes, I actually had all 7 Nightmare on Elm Street movies on Laserdisc. I have done a closer look at this one before, so this is pretty cool. It does include the final battle in both 2D and in Freddy Vision 3D, and actually comes with the official Freddy's Dead 3D glasses, so pretty cool. I have two pairs of them, so this is exactly the same as the ones you would have got in the movie theater at the time, and also, other than the Freddy's Dead logo, they're the exact same style that Maggie wears in the movie. So that's pretty cool. So very nice little tie-in there. Rachel Talalay, who directed this one, has said that she did not like the fact that she was kind of forced to do the 3D stuff. I'm just going to put it over here. Hold on a second. Because she kind of wanted to do something more spectacular for the final battle with Freddy, but couldn't because she was kind of her hands were kind of tied doing the 3D stuff. I think that'll stay. All right, good. So cool. And because of that, she had to focus more on 3D gags, things popping out of the screen at you and things like that. Whereas she really wanted to do the final battle more kind of epic, because it's supposed to be the big final battle with Freddy, So, but she felt that because they were dead set on doing the final battle in 3D, it limited what she was able to do as far as the effects and the spectacle went, which was unfortunate. Now, the Blu-ray edition does not include the final battle in 3D, funny enough, and I don't know why, because if anything, with Blu-ray 3D, they could do the 3D sequence actually better than how it appeared in the theater at the time, because in the theater, it was the old red and blue style. With Blu-ray 3D, they could have done it polarized, which is vastly superior, but for whatever reason, they have not as of yet, so I don't know. Another thing I should mention, apparently the original theatrical release ran about 100 minutes. There is apparently a 105-minute cut out there somewhere. All the home video versions, including DVD, Laserdisc, VHS, everything, have been cut down to 88 minutes. So, if you saw it in the theater, you saw more. All the home video versions are the cut down version. There's no word on if we're ever going to get that 100-minute cut or the rumored 105-minute cut. I don't know. It's annoying. It's kind of like the same. I'm imagining it's the same story as Nightmare 5. It's like, whoa, I don't know. We don't know what happened to all that extra footage. So, whatever. Who cares? It's only Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah, well, I care, and I'm sure a lot of you do as well. Anyway, Freddy's Dead, the final nightmare. So we have a John Doe. In fact, that's all we ever know him as, is John Doe. Basically, this young man who has lost his memory. He doesn't know who he is, where he's from, anything like that. But there's this woman who's kind of helping him to recover his memory, and they get a lead that suggests that he came from Springwood, and that's actually her hometown. So she's wanting to find out some stuff about her past as well. So hey, kill two birds with one stone. They decide to do a road trip to Springwood and see if she can help John Doe recover his memories, and also uncover some stuff about her own past and things like that. So they head off to Springwood, and 3 interns from the hospital stow away with them. And there's our group of teenagers, and who's going to get killed first, and in what kind of horribly ironic and kind of amusing Freddy-esque way. Well, we'll find out when we get there. So we get to Springwood. Maggie says, "Oh, you guys got to get out of here. It's no, you shouldn't be here. You got to go back to the hospital." It's like, fine, whatever, we'll leave. So the 3 of them pile into the van and head off to get out of Springwood. But each time they try to leave, they end up right back in Springwood again. So it was at this point I was thinking, like, oh, hey, this is kind of like what one of the recurring themes was in the TV series, Freddy's Nightmares, and Nightmare on Elm Street, the series. So personally, I was kind of delighted that they had brought that aspect of it into the movies for the first time. We'd never really seen that in the movies before. It'd always been kind of the unescapable Springwood was more just in the TV series, but now we finally have it in the movies. So I was kind of cool with that. I was like, oh, cool. They're doing that now. Awesome. So we've officially made the stuff that happened in the series canon. I mean, I've always considered the series canon anyway. Just because even though there was some slight discrepancies with the continuity. I talk about that in my Nightmare on Elm Street 4 review, by the way, if you want to hear some of my thoughts on Freddy's Nightmares. So it's nice to see that aspect of it. So anyway, they can't escape Springwood. They're stuck there, so basically they just have to deal with it. So occasionally they will doze off, and Freddy will show up in their dreams, but we're not killing anybody just yet. When they first get to Springwood, they discover that there's no kids there. All the children are gone. It's just adults. They find like a fair. They go to a fair, and it's just all adults there. We get a kind of cheesy, awkward cameo of Roseanne and Tom Arnold as, clingy former parents. It's like, oh, you can come live at my house. And it's funny, it's amusing, it's of its time, but it does feel a little bit out of place. But I guess it serves a purpose. I mean, it sort of establishes that these parents have all kind of gone crazy without the presence of kids around. And so the whole idea is that kids and their dreams and their fears give Freddy strength and bring Freddy back. So Freddy's been gone for quite some time. It's one of the official Nightmare on Elm Street fan sites, official fan site, one of the sort of reputable sites, says that it's set 10 years from now. So they set it as 1999, which would be 10 years after the events of Nightmare 5, which I think kind of makes more sense. If you had it 10 years from now, like when it came out in 1991, you'd be looking at 2001. I mean, really, it's a difference of 2 years either way, and it doesn't really matter. It's supposed to be in the near future, wherever that is, but I think setting it in 1999 is fine. 1999 is fine. So, there you go. So anyway, they start investigating and poking around, going through the old records and such, trying to find out something about John Doe's past. And they uncover a lot of stuff about Freddy and about his past. And we discover that Freddy was originally, he was married, he had a kid, and killed his wife. And the kid may have witnessed this. Well, did witness this. And the kid witnessed this. So John Doe's thinking like, I must be Freddy's kid. I'm his son. Awesome. Wrong. All John Doe's purpose was basically to lure his actual kid to Nightmare on Elm Street, to bring more kids to Nightmare on Elm Street, to lure... All John Doe's purpose was, as far as Freddy was concerned, was to bring Maggie to the town, to bring more kids to the town, so that he could be strong again. And he actually wants to escape Springwood now. He wants to get out of Springwood to another city where he can start again. Like, at this point, he's had his revenge. All the Elm Street kids are dead. All the parents are dead. And he just wants to get out and keep killing, because that's what he does, that's what he loves, and he just wants to keep the killing going, essentially. So it turns out, I'm just going to spoil this for you. Stop now if you don't want it spoiled, but this is the big revelation in the movie. You ready? Okay, if you're carrying on, I'm going to spoil it for you right now. That's all the warning you get. Okay, Maggie is actually Freddy's kid. In this case, his daughter. So so she basically witnessed him killing her mother, and then he kind of shut her up, and she was carted off to Child Protective Services. He was hunted down, and he had been secretly killing. She finds like his lair and his gloves and stuff like that, and realizes that he's been killing kids in the neighborhood and stuff too. So yeah, and she's like, and I won't tell anybody, and he's like, I know you won't, blah blah blah, and it's kind of cool because we actually get to see Robert Englund out of the Freddy makeup, just being Freddy before he was burned alive and before he became the dream entity. So we're getting another part of his origin story that we've never seen before. We're getting an actual addition to the lore. So something that we never knew before was that Freddy actually did have a wife and a kid, which kind of makes his crimes all the more disturbing, and perhaps adds some other subtext to it, which they obviously don't spotlight, but is kind of alluded to. I'll let you do the math on that one. But so it's kind of interesting getting that additional layer to the Freddy mythos. I mean, honestly, by this point, I don't know what more they can add to his backstory that we don't already know. I mean, the comics certainly added some stuff to the backstory. We also get to see some of him when he was a teenager, and when he was, he had abusive parents and such, and this actually does jibe pretty well with what we read in the comics. Obviously we wouldn't really consider the comics canon, but it seems to be going in a similar direction to what we read in the Marvel comics before, as far as his origins and having abusive parents and things like that. Now, in this case, his father is another star cameo here. His father is actually played by Alice Cooper, which was kind of cool. And he played a kind of as, hillbilly Texan type, I don't know, basically just hitting him with the belt and stuff like that, and Freddy is unaffected by the physical punishment. In fact, he enjoys it, and he's laughing through a lot of it. So you see that Freddy was messed up in the head for a very long time. So kind of cool. So we're getting this finale to the saga, but at the same time we're seeing parts of the origins of Freddy that we've never seen before. So I like that kind of bookend to it, that it gives us both sides of the story, the beginning and the end. We already know the middle. We've seen all that in the previous movies. So let's talk about some of the nightmare sequences and some of the death scenes. Some pretty cool ones in this one, actually, and some that are partly cool, partly cheesy as hell. One of my favorites, actually probably my favorite in the whole movie, is Carlos, the deaf kid, who he has a hearing aid. He can't hear a thing when the hearing aid is out. We find there's definitely a running theme of abuse in this, about kids who were abused. And Carlos, for example, had just a batshit crazy mother who, if he was late when she called to him, she would clean out his ears with a Q-tip, but like really deep, to the point where it would damage his eardrum and he'd be temporarily deaf, until it got to the point where he permanently lost his hearing in that ear. Or I guess in both ears. So at that point, Child Protective Services stepped in and took him out of that situation, and he kind of grew up in foster care. But but it was heartbreaking. I mean, it was a very tragic story to him. So of course, Freddy latches on to that, because he's all about taking your fear and making it manifest in the dreams. And he steals his he takes his hearing aid out in the dream, and there's actually it's by turns tragic and funny, because Carlos he's like looking around, he knows Freddy's around, and and you can't hear anything, so it's like just dead silent, and all you hear is the sound of like his own heartbeat and his breathing and stuff, and just some faint thumps of things. So you see Freddy sneaking up behind him and like stomping and stomping, but he doesn't hear anything. He's like waving his arms and he's like yelling and screaming, and Carlos is still like looking around and trying to see where Freddy is. He has no idea that he's right behind him. So then finally, in the end, Freddy gives him his hearing aid back so he can hear. But it's like this mutant hearing aid, and it like implants into his ear, like the spikes and stuff. He's like, it's just like grows onto the side of his head, and it gives him like super hearing, so everything is super, super loud. So Freddy takes a pin and drops it, and Carlos is like, no. So he reaches out and he manages to catch it. But then Freddy takes like a whole bucket full of pins and just like tosses them, and they're all just raining down. And to Carlos, it sounds like just everything is like a cannonball smashing into the floor. So just hundreds of these pins smashing into the floor one after the other, and it's just like unbearable. So it causes him a lot of pain. He's like cowering on the floor. So then Freddy comes along with the claw and whips out a chalkboard, and he stretches out the chalkboard, makes it bigger, and Carlos is like, no. So then he starts scraping his hands scraping the claws along the chalkboard, and it's just like unbearable. I mean, a lot of people I know find that unbearable to begin with. So imagine that, but amplified like 1,000 times. That's what poor Carlos is hearing. So he just keeps doing that and scratching, and like rubbing the claws all over it. And then Carlos's head just explodes, basically, because it's just too much. But I liked how that whole thing played out. I mean, we got a lot of Carlos's backstory, which was very sad and tragic, and then we got Freddy just relishing the. It's pure evil. It's a pure evil Freddy moment. I mean, he is just purely sadistic in the way that he dispatches Carlos and just makes him suffer in the most personal way he possibly can. Then we have a young Breckin Meyer, actually, in his first feature film appearance, apparently. Yeah, so he plays the sort of stoner character he's a stoner who's also really big on video games. He loves video games. And you gotta remember, this is 1991. This is when Nintendo and Sega were like the two big kings of the video game world. So there's a lot of little Nintendo references and such in his sequence. So he basically is just kind of stoned out on the couch while everyone else is off exploring and investigating. And Freddy appears on the TV and he's like, "Hey, let's get high." And then he's standing there in front of this psychedelic background, and the psychedelic background kind of like oozes out of the TV and fills the room, playing all the while playing Inagata Devita. And I mean, that sequence is actually really freaking cool and just perfect psychedelia trippiness. Very a lot of fun there. and reminiscent to me of those old 60s, music shows and whatnot that would have this sort of lava lamp style background of, paisley this and lava that and all trippy colors and stuff in front of a chroma key. I remember the hilarious House of Frightenstein used to do that with the Wolfman sequences. He was like a DJ, and of course the Wolfman, combined reference to the Wolfman and Wolfman Jack. And he would play these songs and be dancing in front of, like, chroma keyed in front of this trippy psychedelic background. And it put me very much in mind of that type of thing, and maybe a little bit of Yellow Submarine in there, so that was cool. So then it goes from that to a video game where Breckenmeyer's character is actually in a video game, like an 8-bit video game, fighting like a Freddy character, and he's doing pretty well. But then, of course, Freddy likes to cheat. So he starts, turns into like a super powered up Freddy and starts like attacking him. Now, here's the part where it gets really silly. I mean, that part is all fine and dandy and perfectly suited to the character. But here's the part where it gets really silly. And now I've talked about this before, how there's some question as to, can what Freddy is doing to you physically in the dream be mirrored in real life? Now, we've seen hints that maybe it can, maybe it can't, depending on your perspective, whether or not you're looking at it as a dream or not. For example, way back in Nightmare 1, with Tina's death, being dragged up the wall and along the ceiling and everything as Freddy's slashing away at her, was that a dream? Was that actually happening in the real world, mirroring what he was doing to her in the dream? We don't really know for sure. It's open to interpretation. That's one of the fun things about it. And then there's other cases like that. Like, for example, I don't know, what's her face in Nightmare 3 when she gets pulled through the TV? Did she just, in real life, take a flying leap at the TV and put her head through it? Or was she actually lifted in midair and pulled into the TV by Freddy like she was in the dream? But if you were to see it in real life, she'd just kind of be floating to the TV. So things like that. So it's been kind of up in the air. It's been kind of a question. Now, in this case, they seem to imply that, yes, he actually does physically affect you in the real world. So, in the case of Breckenmeyer, Freddy's like making him jump up and down in the video game, and then it cuts to real life, and he's like actually bouncing up and down, accompanied by cheesy 8-bit video game sound effects, in the real world. And he's like jumping up the floor, and he's having him smash his head on the ceiling repeatedly, and it's just, it devolves into ridiculousness so fast, to the point where you're like, you just want him to die so the sequence will be over. Like, it starts off so cool and fun, but gets into just complete silliness. So, yeah, kind of mixed feelings on that one. And then, I want to talk about tragic backstories and subtexts of abuse. We have Leslie Dean's character, Tracy, who basically has a dream where Freddy latches onto something that she's tried very hard to repress, namely that she was molested by her father when she was a kid. And so Freddy latches onto that and has the father manifested in the dream. But Tracy has, part of her therapy has been coming to terms with that and finding herself and finding her strength and so forth. So she fights back, and she actually manages to beat him. And she remains a very strong character throughout the film, and I hope an inspiring character to others who may be repressing memories of that. And an interesting side note to that, apparently her experience playing that character in the movie actually unlocked genuine memories of having similar experiences when she was a little girl. So Leslie Dean actually found the experience of working on Freddy's Dead to be very therapeutic, because it helped her to come to terms with her own personal, real-life repressed memories of horrible things that had happened to her as a child. Kind of cool that, playing a fictitious character that had these experiences allowed her to unlock and cope with the memories of similar experiences that she had actually had in real life. Leslie Dean is just a really interesting person, I have to say. She's in basically an all-girl rock band, sort of gothic rock band now. And if you watch the documentary Never Sleep Again, she actually appears in the interviews in full makeup, which I'm guessing is her outfit for the rock band. And it's kind of like horror girl kind of outfit, like pale makeup and blood streaks. And then the whole time she's got this, sort of I don't know what you describe her as, like sort of a trophy girl doll type person on her arm like the whole time, and this beautiful young girl, and she's just kind of like staring blankly into the camera the whole time the interview's going on. It's a little bit unnerving, but I get it. It's all part of the shtick, as it were, and it very seems like a very unique and interesting person, but. But yeah, I thought that was great. Like when I read that it actually helped her to deal with her own traumatic experiences. I thought that was really cool, and it's not often that you hear about things like that happening. Um, so yeah, I mean, overall, Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare does have its issues. It does kind of devolve into cheese, especially during the final battle. It's not as exciting as you kind of want it to be. One other thing we do find out, which we have not found out before, is how Freddy got his dream power. Yes, so we knew all about everybody else's dream powers, but how did Freddy get his powers? To invade people's dreams and to affect the reality of their dreams, to take over the reality of their dreams. Well, apparently he made a deal when he was being burned to death by the angry parents. He made a deal with these three dream demons that basically, I guess if he gave them his soul, they would give him this dream power. And the dream demons, I think they're dream eaters. They feed on bad dreams and stuff like that. So they wanted Freddy to kind of work for them, to bring them dreams to feed on, and then in return for which he would get the souls of the victims and be able to take his revenge on the parents by killing the children. And yeah, so that was something that we finally found out. That was something that we never knew before. So there was a lot of additions to the lore in this. I think people get a little too hung up on the cheesier aspects of this. I don't think, again, that it's a total write-off. I find it a very entertaining movie. It's a lot of fun. What's that noise over there? I don't know. Anyway, it's not the strongest of the series. It does have its weaknesses. Johnny Depp cameo. There's a Johnny Depp cameo in one of the dreams. Actually, it's the dream that Breckin Meyer is having just before it goes into psychedelic land, where he does the this is your brain on drugs thing, cracks the egg. So, nice little reference to the commercials that he used to do, but also a nice little callback to him being someone from the very first movie. It's just nice of him to. He apparently just did that as a favor to Rachel Talalay because they knew each other. He just came in for like an hour and did this one little cameo, and that was it. So it was nice bit of fun, but yeah, cool stuff. So I mean, overall, I like Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare. As I say, it does have its faults, but I don't think it's a total write-off. So what can I tell you? I think that's about all I have to say about it. So let's pick a chocolate bar, shall we? What do we got here? Snickers. Snickers! Because that's what Freddy does after he makes his wisecracks a lot of the time. Packed with peanuts, Snickers really satisfies. Alrighty, well, that is it for today, and now finally we're all caught up. Alright, so tomorrow we will carry on with the final regular movie in the franchise, Wes Craven's long-awaited return to the franchise, actually, with Wes Craven's New Nightmare. And that's what we'll talk about next time. Until then, quick thank you to my Patreon sponsors. Thanks, Patreon sponsors. You guys and gals are awesome. Special big thanks to Kyle Pellegrini and Get Your Gorgeous On, the always amazing e-mag maintained by Michelle O'Toole and Simon Hedger. Thank you very much for the support, guys. Alrighty, I'll talk to you next time. Until then, thanks for watching, and sayonara. Yaphet Kotto! Oh my god, I completely forgot Yaphet Kotto. Yaphet Kotto is in it as well. He plays Doc, who is actually someone who's very good at controlling his dreams, and he gives all of them kind of some tips and pointers, and actually acts as a guide a lot of the time to help them to control their dreams and to battle Freddy. and he understands how Freddy works and how he attacks them. He says, it's your mind that he'll go for before anything else. So that's where you really got to be on your guard. And he's very good at controlling his dreams, so he passes that information and his personal techniques on to all of them so they can better deal with Freddy. Yaphet Kotto, of course, you probably most remember from the original Alien, where he played Parker. Got to talk about this bonus situation. It's got to talk about these bonuses. So very concerned about his bonus, but awesome actor. Always a treat to see him whenever he shows up in something. And I don't know why I blanked on. I guess just so many things to cover in this one and so many cameos. I just completely forgot. Sorry, I remembered in the end. All right, for sure. See you next time.